This really does have that magic. It has that possibility to change so many lives in this room. Benjamin Disraeli was once quoted as saying, "Nurture your mind with great thoughts. To believe in the heroic makes heroes." You are about to have the opportunity to be mentored by someone who truly is heroic. And his story is so exceptional. At the age of, in fact, he has been doing this, heroically helping people alter their lives for over 5 decades. At the age of 26, he was introduced to the book. We've all heard about the book. Napoleon Hill, most of us hopefully have read it. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. At that instant, not only his, but unknowingly millions of lives were changed to such a great degree that they will continue to change millions more for decades and decades to come. You see, I don't know if you know the story, but Napoleon Hill was actually a reporter. And back in the day, Andrew Carnegie, who is a famous, extremely wealthy financier and philanthropist, realized he had something in him that made it possible. So he charged Napoleon Hill with the challenge of discerning and determining and then authoring and writing about and documenting the true principles and formulas of success. That's what resulted in the book. So by reading and being inspired by this book, already he was influenced by those two greats. And it led this next individual on a path of desire. It sparked him a desire to truly dig deeper and go further and learn everything that he could about success. That drive and that path led him to meet the individual known as the Dean of Personal Development, Earl Nightingale, and then, fortunately enough, was able to be mentored by him. Did so well that later they became colleagues. And now over the decades, this individual has taken that knowledge and then added it with so much of what he's learned since, and has gone out to change so many lives, not just in personal development, but in success coaching. In fact, through the Proctor Gallagher Institute with his partner Sandy Gallagher, they have literally inspired, motivated globally. Now, he was a legend long before so many worldwide knew him. Many of you may know him through his role in the movie The Secret. All that did was take an individual who had been a legend for decades and shoot him into superstardom so everybody knew him. Over the next 2 hours, as we close out the morning session, please open your mind, clear out all other thought, get the pen ready, make sure you've got fresh paper, because you have an opportunity to learn from someone who has led heads of state, others, innumerable massive executives to take companies to great success, and he's here to give what he knows to you so you can do the same for those you love. Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet. Please bring to this stage in the GoPro way the one and only Mr. Bob Proctor! Thank you, sir. They are all yours. Greetings. Yes! You know, I believe yesterday Eric said it was about mindset. You know, as you walk out here, if you don't have the right mindset, this room could be very intimidating. What a wonderful crowd. You know, I've been around this business for a long, long time. Probably as long as anybody that's in the business now. And I believe that Eric and Maureen Worre deserve a real big vote of thanks for what they're doing. I don't know anyone else that has done as much as them from a generic training perspective. There's been many within the industry, within a company,
that have done a phenomenal job, but from outside, as generic trainers, they've done an incredible job. I want to spend my time talking to you about results. The results we get are nothing but an expression of what's going on inside. And if you think about it, this is what the Worres have really focused on in helping you change your results. So as we go through here and talk about results, I want you to really think, how do results happen? Do they just happen? I don't think so. And yet, there's a very large group of people, the way they live, you would think that that's the way it is. It just happens. But results don't just happen. Results are the physical expression of what's going on inside. And if we let the outside control what's going on the inside, there's going to be nothing but a repeat performance. Okay, get this going. There we go. I have found that results always tell the truth. You can't fudge it. You can't kid anybody. The results always tell the truth. We can blame everything under the sun. We can point our finger, do whatever we want. But the results tell us what's going on. And if we don't like the results, we're the only one that can change them. I want to suggest that you take a real close look at your results. As we go through this, then ask yourself, how do my results happen? I spent 9.5 years seriously studying, trying to figure out how we get the results we get. Now, I've spent over 50 years working at this, but really focusing on what was going on, it was about 9.5 years. I'm having trouble with the flipper here. It's probably the computer. Now, I think everyone wants to permanently improve their results. I don't think there's any exceptions to that. We will frequently see our results getting better, and then they go back again. We go ahead, and then we flatten out again. If we're going to change the results we're getting, it's absolutely essential we change our paradigm. And if we don't change the paradigm, nothing happens. Any change is temporary. It goes right back to where it was. I've been looking at this for many, many years. I started studying this book over 50 years ago. Hill said there's a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to achieve it. No one is ready for a thing until they believe that they can acquire it. The state of mind must be belief and not mere hope or wish. Now, he said, open-mindedness is essential to belief. Closed minds will not inspire faith, courage, or belief. Then he says something that I think is really encouraging. He said, remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity, than is required to accept misery and poverty. Now, it's very clear that there's many people don't know that. They struggle and they struggle and they struggle all the way through their life. When with a lot less effort, they could have got all the results they wanted. Paradigms are an interesting subject. I have, when I first come around, there's fads, and you get in, there was management by objectives, the MBO programs. And that was very, very big. And everybody was studying it. Corporations were focused on it. Management by objectives. But it didn't last. I remember working for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. I was doing programs for their company, and they spent millions of dollars bringing in MBA grads, and they were going to put them into management. It was a miserable failure. Then we get into transactional analysis. I'm okay, you're okay. And you could really get into that. But I have found if we don't go right back to the basics, what's going on inside that causes us to behave as we behave and get the results we get, nothing's going to change. We've really got to understand that. And so as I go through the time this morning, and I want to thank Eric for giving you as much time as he has, I'm going to try and give you some insight into that. I am not a motivational speaker. I have never even thought of myself as a speaker. I've never belonged to a speakers association. If anything, I see myself more as a teacher and a researcher. I just love studying this subject of why we do what we do and why we don't do many of the things that we want to do. And so in the time that I've got this morning, I want to go into that. And rather than get caught up in the dynamics of this enormous audience, mentally really listen carefully and think. Do you know, you and I are the only creature on the planet, so far as we know, that can get outside of ourselves and look back at ourselves like a stranger might. We can get outside and look back at our behavior and what we're doing. None of the other little creatures, so far as we know, can do that. All of the other little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment. They blend in. You and I are the only creature on the entire planet that's totally disoriented in our environment. And that's because God gave us the ability to create our own environment. Now, do you know, we can go all the way through school, we can go all the way through the most prestigious universities in the world and never really learn the truth about ourselves. Never really touch base with the creative faculties that separates us from all the rest of life. I stumbled on this, but I think I stumbled on it because I had such phenomenal mentors, and they kept leading me down a different path. Now, paradigm's an interesting word. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. Now think of that. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our behavior, our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Now think about that really carefully. The paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. You will have people in your organization that you recognize has tremendous talent, and you sit down and you talk to them and they answer you and you swear to God that they got the message. And nothing happens. And your spouse will say, I thought you talked to them. You'll say, I did. Well, they're not doing anything. I know. You see, the part of the mind that you talk to is not the part of the mind that controls the behavior. There's two parts. One is the intellectual part. That's the part that we communicate with intellectually. But that's not the part that controls the behavior. You could be absolutely brilliant and have a terrible paradigm. There's no point in struggling trying to change the results. I think Buckminster Fuller put that very well. He says, you never change things by fighting existing reality. And you know something? There's a lot of network marketers that are fighting existing reality. But of course, there's a lot of people in life that are fighting existing reality. He said, to change things, you've got to build a new program that makes the existing program obsolete. I've given all these slides to the Worres, and if you're trying to copy them, they can give them to you somehow or another. You never change things by fighting existing reality. Let that sink in real deep, because many times you and I are fighting existing reality. We've got to build a new model, but we have to learn how to build the new model. And we have to get the right information for building the new model. Then we have to know how to install the new model. And when we do that, things start to move in the right direction. I had a man many years ago sat down with me. In fact, it'll be 55 years ago next week. And he said, Bob, you can create your own economy. Well, I know I didn't understand what he meant. I just know I didn't. That was 54 years ago on the 21st of October. And he gave me this book. Reading this book caused a huge improvement in my results and in the direction of my life. I have never stopped reading it. It's Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I have been reading this every day for over half a century. You know, I think it was Hubbard said, when you read a good book through the second time, you don't see something in it you didn't see before. You see something in yourself that wasn't there before. You see? That's what these meetings do. Sometimes a person will say, well, you know, I've been to them and it doesn't do anything for me. You never know. People tried and tried and tried to help me. And I was going in the wrong direction. I never heard what they were saying. But then one day, one man made a big difference, made a huge difference. Do you know that this Go Pro event can cause a huge improvement in your life and in your results? And it could start today. You see, the strange part about this is, it's when the change happens, it's like instantaneous. It's so strange how it works. Now, the key here, I committed to study this material every day and then follow proven direction. Ray Stanford was the man's name. And he said, Bob, if you do exactly what I tell you, now God only knows why I did, but I did. I was 26. I'd quit school when I was 16. I had nothing to offer the world, and so I didn't get much back. I went in the Navy and spent a few years there, and then I worked in bars and in factories. And I was sitting in a fire hall in Toronto when he sat down and talked to me. And if we don't follow the direction of someone that is demonstrated by results, they know what they're talking about, the odds of us winning are pretty slim. Now, I understand this week there were a few hundred people in here that 6- and 7-figure incomes. They know what they're talking about insofar as earning money, 6- or 7-figure income. So it would only make good sense to sit down with one of them and say, tell me exactly what to do. And then go and do it. That's what I did. I don't know why I did, but I did. And you know what it takes? He told me, he said it takes discipline. And I was in the Navy, and they had me running around the parade square with a rifle over my head for hours. That was called discipline. It was actually punishment. And the duty disciplinary officer seemed to have a sadistic streak in him. He just enjoyed doing it. And for a long time, I thought that was discipline. Discipline is when we give ourselves a command and then follow it. Now burn that into your mind, because I honestly believe without discipline, you probably stay where you are. It takes discipline. This I will do. Now, I think everybody here wants to earn more money. You know? Listen to what Hill says about that. If you are one of those people who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought, because it's not true. You see a lot of good, honest, hardworking people in your business, maybe in your organization, and they're not making it. They believe that just work hard, be honest. That isn't going to cut it. It's got to go further than that. He said, if you're one of those people who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought, it's not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantity, is never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. You have to demand it of yourself. It's not anybody else's demand. We've got to demand it. It took me a long time to get that. It comes in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles. In the movie The Secret, I quoted Dr. Wernher von Braun, the father of the space program. He said that the natural laws of this universe are so precise that we don't have any difficulty building spaceships, sending people to the moon. And he said we can time the landing with the precision of a fraction of a second. He said these laws have been set by somebody. Now, for a long time it was believed that religion and science were antagonistic. He said, after years of studying the spectacular mysteries of the cosmos, I'm led into a firm belief in the existence of God. The laws are God's modus operandi. It's how everything happens. Now, this isn't some guy that's a little fanatical. He's probably one of the most wide-awake people that have walked on the planet. He engineered the space shots. When Kennedy asked him, President Kennedy asked him, what it would take to build a rocket that would carry a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, he answered him in 5 words: the will to do it. That's all it's going to take to build your business, the will to do it. You see, will is a mental faculty. The will to the mind is something like sight or hearing is to the body. The will is a mental faculty. The will is what gives you the ability to focus on one idea to the exclusion of all outside distractions. It sort of shuts down the senses and causes you to go inside. The will gives you the ability to focus, to concentrate. And concentration increases amplitude of vibration of the energy that's leaving you. It flows to and through you. You've got great power. It was on October the 21st, 1961, that Worre gave me this book. Things were not going good for me. They really weren't. I was earning $4,000 a year, and I owed $6,000. Now, $4,000 a year was above average income in 1961. But if you look at that, you're aware that if I took every cent I earned and paid debt, I would have taken 18 months to pay the debt, and I'd have had nothing to live on. You see, it was an impossible situation. I had no hope. But when Worre sat down with me, he was so definite in what he said. He said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Now, I did not believe that. But I believed he believed it. And then he said, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? You know, that's not bad logic to work with some of your people. Your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? By October 1962, I was earning $175,000 a year. Now, think of this. I had taken my income and I had multiplied it by 43.75. It was almost 44 times what I was earning in a year. And you know something? You can do that. This is not pie in the sky. I was cleaning offices. I started washing floors to earn a couple of dollars. I started cleaning one office. It was Canada Starch on Comstock Road in Toronto. I got $15 a time for washing the floor. It took me forever. I thought everybody knows how to wash floors. I didn't. Then I got another contract for Kirby's Construction on Wicksteed Avenue in Toronto. It was $65 a month. Now, I had given myself a $100 a month raise because I washed the floor at Canada Starch twice a month. I was up to $95. Now, if you're earning an extra $95, that's quite a bit. You know, when you sit down with someone, you say, listen, if you were just getting an extra $500 a month, that can be huge. $100 a month extra was huge. But you know, in less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, and in London, England. And I was doing over $1 million a year. And I'm going to be honest, I had absolutely no idea of what I was doing. I didn't. If somebody had asked me, what are you doing that's different? I would have said, well, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. And I'm listening to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret record. But I started to ask myself, and I couldn't get an answer. A lot of people were reading Think and Grow Rich. They weren't doing what I was doing. There was a lot of people listening to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret record. Do you know that's the first record outside of the entertainment industry that sold over 1 million copies? I was working with Earl when he got a gold record. But a lot of people, they weren't doing what I was doing. I'd been raised to believe, much the same as you, that if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I found out that wasn't true. I knew I wasn't very smart, but I was earning a lot of money. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't win. I hadn't gone to school. I'd gone to high school for 2 months. I wasn't just winning, I owned the company. I didn't have a good job. You see? Now, as obvious and simple as that seems, that presented quite a problem to me. I did not believe in an emotional or a capricious God that was on a cloud somewhere that said, I think we'll let Bob have a turn. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe I was lucky. And I didn't know how it happened. And for whatever reason, I suddenly became obsessed with the idea of what happened. And so I made up my mind I was going to study it. And I started to study. And I was listening to this record, and I found out where Earl Nightingale was. And I had salespeople listening to the record. Every morning we would listen to this record, same record every morning, so we weren't getting a different message, we were getting the same thing. And one day I said, I'd love to meet that guy. Bob Carson worked for me. And Bob said, no, you wouldn't. He said, what do you mean I wouldn't? I would. We said, if you'd like to meet him, you go and meet him. I thought, damn, he's right. Now, I was in our office in Toronto at the time, and I did some research. I got his phone number. It was around 8 o'clock in the morning, and I phoned his office, and I said, could I speak to Earl Nightingale? Somebody answered the phone, and they said, I'm sorry, Earl's not in yet, but if you leave your number, I'm sure he'll call you back. So I said, okay, I'll give him my number. So it was probably around 8 in the morning, because Chicago's an hour earlier. And a little while later, somebody said, hey, Bob, you're one on the phone. So I picked up the phone, and I hear, hello, this is Earl Nightingale. Well, anybody's listened to his records, that's how he starts all his records. Hello, this is Earl Nightingale. I just about dropped the phone. My heart started to pound. I was hyperventilating, and I thought, what am I going to say? And so I said, I got calmed down a little bit, and I started to talk to him, and I said, Earl, I would like to come and have lunch with you. Now, at that time, Earl Nightingale was the most listened to man in the history of the broadcasting industry. He was on over 1,000 radio stations, plus the Armed Forces Network. And he said, actually, our executive group get together over lunch and we do our decision making there. But he said, if you come down, I'm sure somebody would be happy to meet you. I thought, well, I don't want to just talk to somebody. And then the record started to play in my head, and I said, no, I don't want to meet somebody, I want to meet you. I said, well, next Tuesday or Thursday be when? And he started to laugh, and so I got an appointment. I remember at the time, a picture that keeps coming back to me. He was at 333 North Michigan at the time, and I'm walking up and down the street in Chicago. I got there about 3 hours early. I didn't want to be late. And that was where the first Playboy Club was. And I saw this Playboy Club, and I thought, So I thought, I think I'll go in and see what it's like. And so I go in, and there was a big pool table just inside the door, and there was a couple of bunnies running around, and I thought, wow, you know, it's an interesting environment. And this bunny stand beside the pool table. She says, "You want to shoot a game?" I said, "Okay." Now, I thought I was a pretty fair shot, you know. This bunny cleaned my clock. I don't think I even got a shot. I never forget that girl. Man, she just cleaned the table. But at any rate, I've never challenged anybody to play pool since then, you know. I saw records around the office, and I bought this program. What you see there on the screen is a battery-operated record player. That is sitting on the shelf in my studio. I still listen to those records. In fact, the first record I have on my phone, the magic word, it's attitude. But that afternoon, when I was leaving, I spent an hour with him. And I saw a proverb on the wall in his office. It says, "Seest thou a man diligent in his business, and he'll stand before kings." And beside that is a picture of Earl being introduced to Queen Elizabeth. I thought, wow, that proverb's accurately, it's accurate today. And when I was leaving, I said, "Earl, what's the big deal? What's the secret?" He says, "There's no secret." He says, "Just find out what you love to do and dedicate your life to it." He's the problem with most people is they never find out what they love doing. Well, I'm going to tell you, something came over me at that moment in that office. And I knew exactly what I loved doing. See, I built the cleaning company. I never talked to the cleaners about cleaning. I talked to the cleaners about themselves. I talked to the cleaners about their goals. I got the cleaners listening to these records. That's what I was doing with them all. This is something I realized as I was trying to figure out what happened to me. I was helping them. That's what happened to me. And I thought, I want to do what you're doing. And I made up my mind that day I would. Now, you know, a few years later, in 1968, I was their vice president of sales. I paid an enormous price to go to work there. I was prepared to pay them to let me go to work there. I was earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I walked away from it. I took a job for $18,000 a year. And 5 years later, I was earning $33,000 a year. But I got an education the likes of which you couldn't buy today. Because I didn't just work with Earl. I had an office right beside his. And that gave me an office right beside Lloyd Conant as well. And Lloyd Conant was a phenomenal human being. And I got the opportunity to watch them. You see, I was there on a research mission. I wanted to watch them. I wanted to find out what made them tick. What was different about them? And I got to know Marilyn, their secretary. And if Marilyn ordered Earl a magazine, I got her to get one for me. If she ordered Earl a new book, I got her to get one for me. If Eric Hoffer or Lowell Thomas was coming in to see Earl, I did some research. And when they stepped out of Earl's office, I stepped out of my office. And I introduced myself, and I knew a little bit about them. And I asked if I could have a few minutes. Sometimes I got a few minutes. Some of them became my friends. I have never stopped studying the people that really make it happen. And then I do what they do. There's people here that really make it happen. Find out what they're doing and do exactly what they're doing. Because that's what I decided to do. Now, there's just two things that you have to know to build your business. You have to know where you are, and you have to know where you're going. This is not rocket science. Now, as you look at this is so simple and it's so obvious, you have to ask yourself, why are so many people stuck? And you know that most people are stuck. And you just have to know where you are, and you have to know where you're going. Now, I think the obvious answer is they don't have a goal, but I don't think that's the right answer. I think that's the obvious answer. They may not carry their goal like I do on a card in their pocket. They may not have really articulated what it is they're going after. They may not write it out clearly. It may not even have it in writing, but I think they want something. I believe that's part of our nature, to want something. If you run, you want to run faster. If you jump, you want to jump higher. If you sell, you want to sell more. That's our spiritual essence coming to the surface. Spirit's always for expansion and fuller expression. It's not an accident to want more. It's not to get, it's to grow. No, I don't think the problem's goal. I think the problem's over here. It's where you are. I don't think most people know where they are. That's the paradigm. The paradigm has them locked to where they are. Joel Barker wrote a book on paradigms around 1990. He said, to be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm. Now, you might be willing, but maybe you're not able. Why wouldn't you be able? Because you don't understand how they're formed, and you don't understand how to change them. So you could be willing, but not able. Do you know what GoPro is all about? It's about changing paradigms. That's really what it's all about. I was talking to Marina backstage. I was asking how long they've been at this, and they haven't even been at this that many years. And look at it grew and grew, and then whoosh. They're doing a lot of things right. What are they doing? They're providing a phenomenal service. Now, what are paradigms? Paradigms are a multitude of habits, but really clearly get this. They're other people's habits that have been passed down from one generation to the next. Do you know that many of your beliefs you didn't even originate? In fact, most of your beliefs you didn't originate. You inherited them. They've been passed down from one generation to the next. There's an area in Toronto called Regent Park. I remember back in the 60s, Regent Park was a bunch of old houses that were falling apart. And the city came in, took over, ripped all the houses down, built beautiful apartment buildings, and put the people in the apartment buildings. You know what the people have done? Wrecked the apartment buildings. You can take the people out of the slums. You've got to take the slums out of the people. Do you know a poverty consciousness is passed down from one generation to the next? It is. If you're stuck, it's the paradigm. And if you don't figure out how to change it, the odds are you're not going to change it. Just going to the meetings doesn't do it, because you go to the meetings and it doesn't happen. You see that. You've got to go to the meeting with a plan in mind. When you come here, you ought to be searching for one thing: a person that does many times better than you, and then you want to get to know them, build a rapport with them, find out what they're doing. I was talking to Presley backstage. If you're in Dallas, doesn't matter where you are, you should talk to him. Say, could you tell me 4 or 5 or 6 things that if I did them religiously, I'd build a business? They could tell you. He could tell you. But we don't do that. We hang out with a group of people that are all trying. They're nice people. And you're brainstorming how you're going to do it. Carlyle said he did not believe in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. If they don't know, they don't know. Most people don't know, and they don't know they don't know. Let's stop and think. In 1970, I was working at Nightingale Conant. Alvin Toffler had written Future Shock. Future shock is when there's prediction of a phenomenal change in the future. It's future shock. Now, some of you remember when that book came out, and he made predictions of what was going to happen over the next 40 or 50 years. And some of the predictions were just so far out there, you'd have a difficult time believing them. But now if you look back and think, I'm talking to someone through this camera because this is being streamed on all different continents. It's all over the world. This was unheard of back in 1970. And I think you were wise tuning into this. Do you know what he just said recently? He said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those people who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. You've got to learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's changing the paradigm. That's exactly what it is. Now, in 1970, Eric Hoffer was awarded at the Nightingale Conant. We put on a Human Resource Congress. He was awarded the Human Resource Award. Eric Hoffer was a longshoreman who never went to school, but he always had a library card. He was a phenomenal author. He's gone now, God bless him, but he wrote, there's a little book he wrote, you should get it. Your library's incomplete without it. It's called The True Believer. It is so good. Yet he said, in times of change, the learners will inherit the earth. Well, the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. My goodness, is that true today? That was in 1970. The world was going through phenomenal changes, but they're nothing compared to what is today. In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with the world that no longer exists. Think of the people you know who are absolutely brilliant and they're not making it. You think, how come? Well, here's something else he said that I thought was beautiful. He said, to learn, you need a certain degree of confidence. Not too much and not too little. If you have too little confidence, you think you can't learn. If you have too much, you'll think you don't have to learn. I am a super serious student. I study every day. I study the works of the masters. I really do. And I have a plaque on my wall. It's by Michelangelo. He said, "I am still learning." We're dealing with infinite knowledge. There's no end to it. Whatever we've got, we're scratching the surface. We've got to stay current. If we don't stay current, we're going to fall behind. I'll be 82 on my next birthday. I just invested $1 million in a studio in my own backyard because I got tired of flying all over the place to record. I've got what's called a floating cell. It's a building inside the building. The builder thought I was out of my mind. They built the building and then they built another one inside of it. So it's soundproof. I can hit a button and 2 cameras come out of the ceiling with 21-inch teleprompters. And then all the hookups on the wall will take other cameras. I can run 5 cameras in that studio at the same time. And they all feed into one place. And then some of our people in California or Phoenix, somewhere else, they can come in there and they can edit and pull it out of there. I live in Toronto. So in the winter, there's a lot of snow. So between my house and the studio, which is about 50 yards, I had them heat the ground. So I'll be able to walk from the house to the studio, and I had the studio heated through the floor. And the environment is phenomenal. My purpose is to live and work in a prosperous environment that encourages productivity and pleasure. Now, I think, Eric, you said it yesterday. It's about mindset. And it is about mindset. Now, prior to showing you this, and I'm not going to tell you this to impress you, but to impress upon you, that you do not have to be a psychiatrist to understand this. You do not have to be a psychologist or a behavioral scientist. I'm an ex-office cleaner. But the lady that's the chair of psychiatry in Toronto said she never met anyone that knew as much about the mind as I do. Dr. John Mike, who owns the Montessori school down in Lauderdale, a psychiatrist, he said I taught him more about the mind in 1 year than he had learned in 4 years of medical school and 5 years of psychiatric training. I always find this amazing because I'm just teaching them what a good doctor taught me. We had a man, Abdullah, come over to Toronto for a matrix program we run that's 6 days, and he said he had been practicing psychiatry for 16 years. He'd learned more that week. I'm going to share with you what I've learned. And this is broken down so simple that you can teach this to a child. And if you have children, try and understand this, because I have people saying all the time, how do you teach this to kids? The same as I would teach it to you or you to me. Quit thinking of them as kids. Start to think of them as little people. And the only thing they lack that you've got is experience and vocabulary. If you use a vocabulary that they can relate to, and you don't pull in the experience you've got, you can communicate very effectively. I remember I was working for a network marketing company years ago, and one of the top people asked me if I would do some work with their teens. And I really didn't want to. I was busy. I wasn't looking for things to do, but I didn't know how to say no. So I said, okay. I spent 1 hour a week with them on the phone for 12 weeks. There was about 10 or 15 of them. They stood on a stage in Kansas City in front of an audience like this. There were about 12,000 people there. And the audience was taking notes. Those kids will learn it faster than you. See, kids are not having to change their mind, they're making up their mind. There's a big, big difference. It's about the mind, it's about your marvelous mind. Now, I want you to look at the mind and that paragraph. Look at your mind and your paradigm. So as I go into this, like I said earlier, don't get caught up in the dynamic of the size of this program. Mentally, really think about you and your business. Because what I'm going to show you is something very simple. But in 55 years of studying this seriously, this is the most powerful idea I've ever learned. You and I think in pictures. We think in pictures. There was a doctor in San Antonio, Texas in 1934. That was the year I arrived because he was doing this for me. He was very involved in the healing arts and in holistic health. He stated the mind is an activity, it's not a thing. No one has ever seen the mind. In order to gain clarity and eliminate confusion, he said, I will create an image that we can work with. Now, here's the point. When you get talking about the mind, you don't have a picture. If I asked you to think of your car like that, you get a picture. Think of your car. Think of it. What color is your car? See? You got a picture in your mind, haven't you? Think of your refrigerator. What color is it? Picture in your mind, isn't it? Think of your front door, and you got a picture in your mind. Think of your mind. No picture. Listen, that's where the problem is. You know what most people, they see the brain. The brain's not the mind any more than your fingernail is. Your brain is part of your body. Your brain is an electronic switching station. Your brain is the most phenomenal electrical switching station that's ever been designed. And no one knows how to duplicate it. When you think, you activate brain cells. The brain doesn't think. You think with the brain. There's a big difference. It's reported we've got Albert Einstein's brain in a jar somewhere in New Jersey, but it's not doing anybody any good because Albert's not with it. You see? When you think, you activate brain cells. When you activate the brain cells, you change the vibratory rate of your body. Your body's an instrument. Your body's a mass of molecules and a very high speed of vibration. For me to raise my arm up and down, I had to activate brain cells. The brain is the electronic switching station. When a person has a stroke, the blood stops going to a part of the brain, and the brain is the greediest part of the body when it comes to blood. And because the blood stops going, the brain cells are dead, and the arm just hangs loose. Why? The electronic component to move the arm is not working. You know what we found? We can educate other cells to do what the damaged cells could no longer do, and now you're seeing people gain the use of their arm back again. Yeah. That's called patterning. Now, like I said, this is the most valuable idea I've ever learned. Fleet said, if there's a problem in the body, it exists in the mind. I could paraphrase that. If there's a problem in your organization, it's in your mind. If you're going to change your organization, you've got to change your way of looking at it. Let that represent you. That's your mind and your body. That's the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the body. Now, without question, this is the most valuable idea I have ever learned. Because when I look at you, that's how I see you. I see the top half of your head as your conscious mind. That's where your intellect is. And that's what you're communicating with. Hooked up to the conscious mind, you have your sensory factors. You can hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. And your sensory factors are hooked up to your conscious mind to help you correspond and communicate with your outside world. Do you know what our problem is? We live through them. We let the outside world control what's going on. We've got to stop that. We want to use the sensory factors to look and see what we have been doing and then work at changing it inside. But we don't let the outside control us. Now let's go and look at this. I found this on the internet. I love it. The most powerful paradigm shifting tool on earth is the human soul on fire. When we wake up, yet we start to see ourselves the right way. Wow, there's no slowing us down. It just keeps getting better. Now, let this drawing represent you. You've got your conscious, your subconscious, and your body. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. That's the part of you that can think. I'll tell you something I know. I don't know this from talking to Eric or Marina. I know by observing what they're doing. Their thinking about their business has changed over the past couple of years. I don't have to ask them. I know it. If the thinking hadn't changed, you wouldn't be in this ballroom. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. Do you know that thinking is the highest function that we're capable of? Do you know that thought energy is cosmic energy? It penetrates all time and all space. That's your educated mind. That's the part school focuses on. And that's where your intellect is resident. Now, your subconscious is your emotional mind. And until you get emotionally involved with the ideas, nothing really happens. Now, let's alter this a little bit. The conscious mind gives you the ability to choose. J. Martin Coe wrote a little book a number of years ago called Your Greatest Power. Your greatest power is your ability to choose. That is your greatest power. You choose to build the business you're building. That business you've got, it was your choice. You say, well, it wasn't my choice. Yes, it was. Or you wouldn't have it. You say, well, I don't like it. Well, then you better make another choice. You can accept or reject everything that comes to you. You know all this stuff you see on television about the economy? You don't have to accept that. Do you know in the very best economy, there's people that struggle. And in the worst economy, there's people earning millions. You say it has to do with your environment. Go to Dubai and take a look at what's happened in the desert. They're skiing over there on snow. You have the ability when you reject information to originate information. You've got an originating capacity. Now get this, that's all in your conscious mind. This is really important. Your subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. It has absolutely no ability to reject, and this is the beautiful part. Your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what you imagine and what's real. In the coaching programs I run, I recommend everybody get Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. You want to get it. It's a phenomenal book, The Art of Acting. Stella Adler was one of the greatest acting teachers of America. She studied under Stanislavski, who was the Russian acting teacher who perfected method acting. Marlon Brando wrote the foreword to the book. He was her student. He was the first method actor to hit star status. Stella Adler actually never wrote a book. A man named Kissel took all her lessons after she died and turned it into a book. So when you read The Art of Acting, you're actually going to Stella Adler's acting classes. And that's what William James told us way back in the turn of the century from Harvard. He said, act like the person you want to become. Act like you're running that business. Act like you're already the 7 producer. Yet that's the way you're acting. That's what has to happen. Do you know what our problem is? We're worried about what they think. Who are they? Our relatives, our friends, our neighbors, our downline. What are you acting like that for? Why are you being so phony? Say, I'm training my mind. Okay, now with that in mind, look at this. Here you are today. You will get information coming into your consciousness of why you can't do things. You turn to the newspapers or the radio or television, and you're getting some bad information. Because you have a reasoning factor, the will is an intellectual factor, reason is an intellectual factor. Because you have a reasoning factor, you can think, and you can say, that's not part of my belief system, and so I'm going to reject it. But you know something? We don't do that. Why don't we do it? Because we don't think. And when we're not thinking, this is the way our mind is. Now, what I say about the subconscious, it has no ability to reject. It can only accept. It has no ability to reject. Why? That's part of the paradigm. We have literally been programmed to wander around like nomads. How did it happen? Well, let's go back to when we're a little child. Here we are as infants. This is how we arrived on the scene. Our subconscious mind is wide open. Do you know you can teach a baby any language? You can teach a baby any number of languages. You can teach a baby to read before the baby can talk. And when the baby can talk, you can give them a book on the CAT scan and they'll read it to you. Now you're saying, well, you can't do that. Well, then you probably wouldn't. But the truth is you can do it and it's being done. I have a salesperson in our organization who's Iranian. He came over here as a little boy, but he speaks Sufi. He married a girl from Mexico. She, of course, is fluent in Spanish. They live in Phoenix. They have 2 little kids. Those kids are fluent in Sufi, Spanish, and English. Naresh said, if I talk to them in Sufi, they answer me. If I talk to them in Spanish, they answer me. I have an associate that I did a lot of work with in Kuala Lumpur. And his little boy at 4 could speak 4 languages. They thought nothing of it. Children don't have the ability to reject. Where do you think you got your ideas about money? Where do you think you got your ideas about almost everything? That's where you got it when you were a child. Now look at this for a moment. You are being surrounded by things when you're a little kid, and over, that is where your self-image was formed. You had an image of you built before you even had the ability to talk. And you know something strange? That was just one idea. That's what's controlling your income right now. That's controlling your business. That's one idea. You put a multitude of them together and then you're out of luck. Look at this. Robert Heinlein wrote this book, Strangers in a Strange Land, way back in the 1960s. He was a science fiction writer. He said, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. Well, you know that's a lot of people were programmed because that's the kind of environment they were raised in. And that's how their paradigm was formed. Paradigm is nothing but a multitude of ideas. And it's as strange as it sounds, we still like the same food we were programmed to like. We speak the same language. We believe in the same concepts. All our belief systems, we inherited them. And if you don't change that paradigm, baby, you're going to stay where you are. Now look at, school gave us valuable knowledge. However, school never taught us how to change the paradigm. Therefore, we frequently don't do what we already know how to do. Superior knowledge, inferior results, causes confusion and frustration. Let's go back to the model again. There's the books in the conscious mind. Now that's the model we learned as we were going through school. Do you know that model is still the way it works today? You come here, you gather information, you take the notes, and you say, I got it all figured out. If you don't change the results, you'll be coming back here next year earning just about the same as you're earning this year. Many of you are earning this year what you were earning last year. You think, what the heck's the matter? It's the paradigm. I don't care how much knowledge you've got. The knowledge doesn't turn into results. You see, if you've been in network marketing just for a short period of time, you already know what you have to do. You've got to sit down with another person, and you've got to find out what they want, and you really have to want to help them. You've got to care. Yet you've heard it many times. They don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. That's very common. Everybody knows that, even if you've only been around a couple of weeks. But you see, it's the paradigm that controls the results. And if you want to change the results, you've got to change the paradigm. And if you don't change the paradigm, it'll stay the same. That is why people keep getting the same results year after year after year. Now look at this for a moment. Here's a model that I put together of the organized educational model, which most of us are still following in corporate training. Here's the person, and here's the model. You go to school and you hear what the teacher's saying. You hear with your ears. And because you hear it, you gather the information. I got the note, I got it down, damn it, I got it all figured out. Then the teacher comes along, and they're going to give you a test. They want to know, did you learn it? Well, I'm going to tell you something. Memorizing it is not learning it. You can answer all the questions. You got all the knowledge, and you'll get the degree. You can have them right off the end of your business card. But that is not learning, baby. That is gathering information. Now get this. Gathering information isn't going to do you any good if you don't use it. Now you hear with your ears, look at, you listen with your emotions. You've got to let yourself get emotionally involved in it. You know those 6- and 7-figure producers that were here earlier in the week? They're the ones you want to be talking to. Any one of them. Doesn't matter which one. They prove by results they know how to earn 6 or 7 figures. Ask them, say, what are you doing? Just tell me what you're doing. What time do you start work? What do you read? How many people do you see? What kind of a presentation you put? Do you know the average person's presentation is pathetic? I have been doing this since the 60s. I have spent at least 40 hours on this presentation. If you don't do it, you're not going to be any good. And you've got genius locked up within you. Now you listen with your emotions. And if you're listening, odds are pretty good you're going to learn. Now really let this sink in. Learning is when you consciously entertain an idea. You get emotionally involved in that idea. You step out and act on the idea, and you change the end result. It's the feedback from the change in result that's the learning experience. I did this, and that's what happened. I learned something. That's not gathering information. Listen, I can play loud music, I can get you dancing, I can feel good about yourself. If you don't learn what the paradigm is, if you don't learn how to change the paradigm, you're toast. You're going to be the same next month as you are this month. See, when my income went from nothing to $1 million, I thought, what the hell's happening? How did this happen to me? I'm an ordinary guy that got some extraordinary information. And when I figured it out, you know something? All I wanted to do was teach it. That's all I do. That's all I want to do. I want you to learn what I've learned. Because I believe you are so much better than you believe. Now look here for a moment. Let these lines represent levels of awareness. Okay? A is aware of how to get the results B is getting, but B is not aware of how to get the results A is getting. Now think of this. A is aware. You could say the A's were the ones that are here earlier in the week. They took all week to come here. B is not aware of how to get the results A is getting. Why do so many of the B people get stuck and stay stuck? Why don't they go and ask the A people what they're doing? Well, they stay stuck because of paradigms, a lack of awareness. It's so wild and so misunderstood. You're going to make a decision. Now, watch this carefully, because I think this is important. I want you to look at the areas of your life that your paradigm has enormous influence over. This is really important. Now, everybody might focus on a different area, but every area is really important. Your perception is controlled by your paradigm. It is. When you're sitting down and talking to a person about the opportunity in your organization and they don't see it, they don't see it. You're going to help them shift their perception of what this is all about. Perception is your point of view. It's how you see things. Perception is something that's going on inside. Your paradigm controls your perception. Your paradigm controls your use of time. I remember one morning, I was speaking on a program with Earl Nightingale in downtown Chicago, and Earl come and said, "Do you want to meet for breakfast first?" And I thought, well, yeah, anytime I had a chance to be with him alone, I was there. And so we're having breakfast together, and I asked him, I said, this guy, he fascinated me. He did. And I said, "Earl, how did you learn to master time management?" We're sitting having breakfast. I can still hear his fork hit the plate. And he looked at me and said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I never mastered time management. Nobody masters time management." He said, "Time can't be managed." He said, "I merely manage activity." He said, "I just carry a card in my pocket and I write on it at night the things I have to do tomorrow, the goal achieving activities. And when I wake up, I do them." And I thought, really? That's it? I've had these cards printed. And on the back of them is the last chapter out of As Man Thinketh. I read it over and over and over again. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It's the result of long and patient effort in self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of literature that you'll ever have. I read it every day because it's on the back of my to-do list. This was my to-do list to start here. You see? I carry them with me. Use of time. You don't manage time, you manage activities. Okay? Your creativity. There's nobody in this room that's more creative than another. We are God's highest form of creation. We're all the same. We've all got the same potential. It's what we do with it. Our paradigm controls our effectiveness. How effective are you? How effective are you in your business? It controls your productivity. And get this, it controls your logic. Have you any idea where we would be if the Wright brothers let logic control them? We wouldn't be moving around very fast. You know, all the people that have made breakthrough were illogical. Your paradigm controls your ability to earn money. Now look at this. Do you see that box around all those areas? They're like imaginary walls. They're imaginary walls that you just don't seem to be able to break through because the paradigm is controlling you. The second you make up your mind that you're going to change your paradigm, you don't have to change it. You just have to say, "I am changing it." That's it. You knock the walls down. That doesn't mean you're going to move, but now you can move. You can step out of there. You can do it. God, it's such a wonderful thing to be aware of. And I'm going to tell you something. I want you to imagine how your entire life will change as you begin improving any or all of these areas. The change is going to be huge. From 4,000 to 175,000. My head was spinning for years. I was wondering, I wonder when it's going to end. I remember reading, James Cagney was a very favorite actor of mine. I remember reading about him. He never saw his own movie. And he never thought his career would last. He always thought it was going to fall apart. Get this, the change is not only going to be huge, it'll be permanent. I have never gone back. That doesn't mean I've never had problems. I've had lots of problems. But I control me regardless of the problem. I don't let the problem control me. Change. Imagine if that's the only thing you changed is your use of time. Do you know, you're going to hear marvelous information here. That's all you're going to get from everybody here. If this is the only thing you took away, that from this point on, you are going to manage your activities. That's it. No more fooling around. I was coaching a man one time. I thought he had more money than God. He used to fly me to his yacht in the Caribbean, or he'd fly me over to Gstaad or to Cap Antibes. Paid me tens of thousands of dollars, and I'd just sit and talk to him. He had a place in Eaton Square in London. If I told you it belonged to the prince, you'd have believed me. The man had a lot of money. His first name was Harash. He wouldn't work. He hired me to get him to go to work. And when he went to work, I was out of work with him. But I remember one time we were at Cap Antibes. He had the most beautiful place, and there was a picnic bench outside. You could look across the bay to Cannes. It was just an absolutely magnificent place. And we were out there having croissants that one of the servants had gone and got. And we're in the south of France. I mean, they were perfect. And some tea, and we were chatting in the morning. And when we were finished, I went to pick the things up to take them in the house. He said, no. You don't do that. And he rang a little bell. And servants come out to pick it up. He said, if you do that, they won't have anything to do. But you know, I couldn't stop thinking about that for the longest time. I realized you have to learn to be served. I was uncomfortable with it. You have to learn to be served. I've lived in the same house for over 30 years. I'll probably live there for another 30 years if I'm here. I'm comfortable there. We have a pool. And there was a guy there, he's gone now, he died a year or two ago, but Frank was there when we moved in. I used to be uncomfortable when we first moved there, sitting watching Frank clean the pool. I used to think I should help him. Joe, that cuts the lawn, looks after the flowers, he was there when we got there. I used to feel very uncomfortable when Joe was cutting the lawn. I felt like I should be helping him. I don't have any difficulty watching them anymore. We have 2 housekeepers. Linda put it across very well. Amanda became 65 and she didn't want to work full time, so we said, well, you just work part time. We'll pay you the same. And we'll get another person in. And she said, you know, the other person's really good. She looks after the house, but Amanda looks after us. And I thought, yeah, it's true. You've got to learn to be served, though. You have to learn everything. Well, when you learn to use your time, you'll skyrocket your income. I spend all my time creating. I have a phenomenal staff. You must have a phenomenal staff. You really must. You can tell by the work that's being done. I have an assistant that's worked with me for 29 years. Gina, she's incredible. But we have a lot of long-term employees. They're just great people. Now think. I want you to think about you, and I want to think about what you're doing here. Now watch. There's so much more to you than appears on the surface. Do you know, if you stood in front of an infrared television camera in a completely dark room, your body would be nothing but a glistening, radiating, gleaming form. Do you know that there's about 11 million kilowatt hours per pound potential energy locked up in the electrons in the atoms of your body? You've got enough energy in this hand, potential, to light up this hotel for probably a week. But we don't act like it. You already have within all that's required to be, do, or have whatever you want. You don't have to get it. You've got it. You've got to accept that idea. You see, your spiritual DNA is perfect. You are truly God's highest form of creation, yet requires no modification and no improvement. This is so important we understand this. Your spiritual DNA is all-knowing. It's all-powerful. Part of you that's ever-present. That's the real you. You should ask yourself, am I truly who I pretend to be? Where did the idea for the cell phone come from? Where did the idea for the internet come from? Where did the idea that permits us to stream all over the world to you, who's sitting possibly at home, listening to this, where did that idea come from? I would imagine, as you're sitting in your office or you're sitting at home watching this whole conference, you are so grateful for the internet and for this is streaming. Where did the information come from? It was always here. It was always here. Where does the power come from? You don't get power, you release it. No one gets energy. You'll hear somebody say, where did she get all the energy? Nobody gets any energy. All the energy there ever was or ever will be is 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. We release energy. I have more energy than most people half my age. Where do I get it? I don't get it. I release it. Desire is the triggering mechanism that releases the energy. If you don't have desire, you're going to drag yourself around. Now let me tell you what desire is. Desire is the want that's properly planted in your subjective mind, and it begins to grow. William James said, you plant it in the garden of your subconscious mind. Your results are telling you what you pretend to be or who you pretend to be. You're God's highest form of creation. All right, now let's look here. I would imagine that a high percentage of you are making up your mind while you're here in the Mirage at GoPro, your goal. And I would imagine that you've decided you're going to get something different. Now, if you haven't got this properly in your psyche, you could set your goal to do something you already know how to do. That would be a terrible waste of your life. Goals are not to get. Getting is a side benefit. Goals are to grow. Goals are those things that we get emotionally involved with
that cause us to stretch, that cause us to break out of those old habit patterns. If you could get into Worre's mind, either Maureen or Eric's, when they come up with the idea of filling this ballroom last year, I don't need to ask them. I know it scared them. Because whenever you go to do something you've never done before, it's scary. When we get away from doing what we know how to do you know where we generally go? We go to what we think we can do. Doing what you think you can do doesn't cut it. That's where you say, well, if she reaches this next pin level, yet if he will get so many on auto ship, if Harry does this and Betty does that, then we could get there. This is all being figured out intellectually. Yes, the intellect, and this is where we could go. Do you know something? Going after what you think you can do is no good. First of all, what you think you can do is not going to inspire you. You're not going to get any help from the people you're leaving, and you're going to be leaving the people that you're with. They're not going to help you. It's not that they don't want you to win, it's that they don't want you to leave. Listen, if there's 4 or 5 of us hanging out together all the time, they don't want you to leave. Do you know why? You are forcing them to change. People don't resist change. People resist being changed. Yet if you leave this little circle, you're forcing them by your absence. They got to adapt to your absence. They don't want to do that. They're not going to help you. They're going to criticize you. They're going to tell you you're crazy. No. We got to stretch. We got to really stretch. You got to stretch your mind. You got to get up where the air's thin. Get up into that high octane energy. That's the C-type goal. That's where you're creating. That's what you really want to do. That's what you really want. You don't know how, but you know you will. That's what this organization's all about. That's where they're wanting to take you. There has been an enormous amount of energy gone into putting this together. There has been tens of thousands of dollars spent on putting this together. And you know what they want you to do? They want you to decide to do what you want to do. Do you know where wants come from? Wants come from the essence of who we are. They come from our spiritual essence. And spirit's always for expansion and fuller expression, and it's jabbing us in the consciousness. Want this, want this. It's not to get, it's to grow. My company builds schools in Africa. I have a business partner, Sandy Gallagher, and we made a decision, and we got the whole company involved. We build a new school every 2.5 weeks in Africa. Wait a minute. Our goal is to build one every day. This inspires us. We have no idea how we're going to do it, but we know we're going to do it. You've got to have a goal that causes you to stretch. Write your goal on a card. I started to do that 55 years ago. Carry it in your pocket. Now listen, I'm going to go down something fast. If you're not well-centered, if you don't have the right mindset, and you set a goal to do what you want, understand this. Things don't change outside as fast as you want them to change. Do you know, this little book, You Square, everybody should get it. He said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. He's talking about dealing with unseen forces. What you're doing is working with a non-physical world. That's the real you. You're a spiritual being. Now look it. You're either dealing with ignorance or knowledge. There's a power flowing into your consciousness. Now, as I said, I have given Eric and Marina these slides, so somehow or another they can figure out how you get them. You probably are not going to be able to copy this down as fast as I'm going to go through it. But I want you to think, there's a power flowing into your consciousness. If you're being controlled through your senses and you don't see things happening the way you want them to happen, you'll probably start doubting or worry. So you're taking this knowledge or this power and you're building a negative idea out of it. That doubt or worry, when you impress it, turns into fear. That fear must manifest through the body. The body is the instrument of the mind. It'll manifest itself as anxiety. Now, the anxiety is suppressed. The suppression turns into depression, and the depression turns into disease or decay. Have you any idea how many people live that way? That's where they're at. They doubt, they worry, and they get themselves into a terrible state. They're not doing what they have to do. Faith based on understanding is the key to freedom. Solomon was a pretty brilliant person. He said, in all you're getting, get understanding. Now look at that power is flowing in. If you study, really soak up the good information, you will develop understanding. But here's something you must remember. Understanding can only be developed one way, just one, and that's through study. There is no other way. Now, there's many ways of studying. The understanding will lead to faith. See, you're working with something you cannot see. That's really what you're doing. Don't let your senses control you. Let your God-given faculties control you. That faith manifests in well-being, and the well-being is expressed, and the expression accelerates. That's where you're building momentum, and that's because you're at ease. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It's a result of long and patient effort in self-control, and that's when you move into a creative state. Now, you have the ability to choose. You can go that way or that way. It's so beautiful when we start to understand it. Now, I want you to watch this real carefully, because this will help you understand what happens when you're talking to a new prospect that maybe doesn't understand the dynamics of network marketing. X will represent the paradigm. That is the conditioning in the subconscious mind. It's both genetic and environmental. It's not only passed along through the genes, that's why you look so much like your relatives, but in your little life, you're programmed. And we're going to say X represents. What kind of thoughts do we think? We're going to think thoughts that are in harmony with the paradigm. Now, this is a process. Here we are here, and somebody's going to give you a Y idea. And they'll tell you that if you do this, that, or thus and so, you not only can multiply your income, you can enjoy real freedom. See, time and money freedom is what we want. That's what our spirit's screaming for. Yet when you start to explain it to them, their intellect grasps it and they like it. They say, I love this idea. But they're just intellectually involved with it. Their paradigm hasn't seen it yet. Now, I'm going to show you what happens. That idea has to be turned over to the subconscious. The Y energy doesn't mix with the X. And when you impress that idea, all hell breaks loose. That's where you hit the terror barrier. Worry, fear, anxiety strike just like that. And you go right back to where? To bondage. And you know something? That's where most people spend their whole life. You can help them get through that. You've got to help them understand why they're rejecting what you're offering. Because you sit with them and you draw them out and they say, yes, this is what I want. They tell you they want it. When you show them how to get it, they back away. Why? It's not their intellect you're dealing with, it's their paradigm you're dealing with. It's not in harmony with their conditioning. It scares them. Look at Joseph Campbell put it so well. He says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. What do you have to do? You have to understand that that terror barrier is there. You have to understand when you're going after the big goal, it is going to scare you. You have to understand that if you're not scared and excited at the same time, you're probably not going after the right goal. You got to go after something that just scares the daylights out of you. But it excites you at the same time because it's what you want, but you're not in harmony with it. But if you keep going, here's what happens. You say, I'm going right through that terror barrier, and you just crash right through it. You get out there and you do it. And through repetition of getting involved, you don't eliminate the fear by doing it. You just continue to aggravate yourself, but through repetition, paradigm changes. You go talk to some of the 7-figure income earners. They'll tell you, this is what happens. That book gave me the opportunity to win, but I had to study it. I have never stopped studying it. I've studied it now for many years. And here's something I've learned. There's a law of compensation. And the law of compensation is exact. And nobody can get around it. The amount of money you earn is always in exact ratio to the need for what you do. Your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. Is there a need for what you do? I don't care where you go in the world. I work all over the world. Everywhere I go, people want more. People want to figure out how to break out of this mental shell that they're in. Everywhere you go, doesn't matter where it is, there is a phenomenal need for what you do. So the need is there. You have nothing to do with it. It's there. Then it's your ability to do it. How good are you at it? How good are you at sitting down with someone, getting them to relax, getting them to leave the world they're in mentally and go to the one they really want to live in? How good are you at convincing them that you can show them the way? That's what Ray Stanford did to me. I did not believe I could have anything I wanted, but I did believe he believed it. He always had a big roll of money on him. He was a happy guy. He was healthy. I was unhappy, sick, and broke. He said, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? There's only one thing you have to focus on. 2 steps will take care of themselves. When you focus on your ability to do it, you'll become very difficult to replace. Very difficult to replace. That's important you understand that. Now look at, there's only 3 income earning strategies, M1, M2, and M3. M3 is the strategy you want to teach if you're going to teach your kids. The others, one of them's not bad, but one's no good. M1 is the worst strategy in the world, and yet it's used by 96% of the population. The odds of a person being an M3 when you call on them are pretty slim. M1 is not a good strategy. It's where people trade their time for money. Now, there's part of our paradigm is to save for our old age. Save for a rainy day. I'll tell you what you'll get. You'll get a rainy day. But that's part of the paradigm. That is part of your paradigm. And so a person's trying to save, but they're not earning much, so they squirrel a little bit away of what they are earning at the expense of a life. They never drive the car they want. They never take the vacation they want. They never go they live in the house they want. When I fly out of Las Vegas, I'm going to fly out when I want to fly out. I don't phone to ask them when they're going. They ask me when I want to go. Do you know that that is a choice? That's a choice. And today I fly in the fastest thing in the air. And sometimes I'm all by myself. And I just up there and I work all alone. Costs a lot of money. But what the hell, it's only money. Look at M2 is a good strategy, but it's only used by 3 people out of 100. And that is because there's only 3 people out of 100 of any money to put to work. Now, M3, that's the winner. That's what you're involved in here. This is the strategy that you're involved in. Yeah, it's used by 1% of the population, but get this, baby, they are 96% of all the money that's being earned. And that is because you're setting up multiple sources of income. The ancient Babylonians understood this. Multiple sources of income. The real truth is, you can earn more money when you're sleeping than you can even spend when you're awake. And you know something? The pattern to do is already here. Now look at, our world is changing. And it's changing so rapidly that most people are having difficulty with it. The world's not getting bigger, the world is getting smaller. Let's go back to the people that are streaming. I'm glad that you had the wisdom to tune into this, because you're getting some phenomenal information, and you're getting it in the comfort of your own home, your own office. You could be sitting in your car, maybe in a boat somewhere. There's no end to what you're capable of earning. You can have business all over the world, and many of you do, through network marketing. Look at MSIs, you can set them up anywhere. Now, there's a certain truth about this. Are they all going to be the same? Rarely. Everybody's looking for the heavy hitters. But you know, the ones that were here earlier in the week, they didn't need the ballroom for them. You want to make, next year, they do need a whole ballroom. Now look at, some of the people you bring in are going to build a big business and some a small business. But I'm going to tell you something that is in common with every one of them. The money is going to flow into your bank. And it just keeps growing if you're doing it right. And if you're not, you're going to lose. So basic and so misunderstood. What do you need? You need direction. Where do you get it? From the people that have proved by results they know what they're doing. I think Jesus put it very well when he said, by their fruit you'll know them. You don't have a hard time telling the people that really understand this business. All you have to do is look at their results. You need direction and you need discipline. What we say discipline was? It's the ability to give yourself a command and then follow it. Make certain when you leave here that you know how to give yourself a command and follow it. Absolutely refuse to let the old paradigm control you any further. 26 years ago, or when I was 26, 55 years ago, 54 years ago next week. I don't know why. I honestly believe we're guided. But when Ray said, do exactly what I tell you, I decided I would. My life has changed so dramatically, and it continues to change. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't think I'm any better than anybody. And I know no one's any better than me. But I do know one thing. If I want to be better at what I do, I'm going to have to talk to people that know more than me. I love what I see here. And I'll tell you something, you two know something I don't know. I have nothing but the highest respect for what you've done with this company. Okay? With support, discipline becomes easier. And that's what this company's supplying. They're supplying the support. Now let's summarize. Let that represent you. And understand there's a phenomenal power that flows to and through us. It's flowing to and through us. And that's what thoughts are made of. You can think anything you want. And those thoughts will either be positive or negative. But you send them out into the universe and you impress them upon your subjective mind. Your thoughts cause your feelings, and your feelings are expressed with and through your body. In your actions. And you take a look at the composite of the three of them, thoughts, feelings, and actions, that's what produces the results. And that's what we call attitude. It's the composite expression of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Now, I learned that from these recordings way back in the early 60s. I still listen to them every day. I literally play the records every day. Now, here's something we want to remember. Take this information and turn it into achievement. Achievement is after the fact. It's confirmation that the sacrifice, the effort, the visualization exercise you live with were all worthwhile. Your dream did manifest. Achievement then becomes the catalyst that inspires you to even greater achievement. I found something on the internet that I thought was so appropriate to bring this in for a landing with. I love it. Surround yourself with the dreamers, and the doers, and the believers, and the thinkers. But most of all, surround yourself with those who see greatness within you, even when you don't see it in yourself. That is what this is all about. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.